On all the mentioned extinguished evenings, Zelensky starts ramping up concerns about attacks from Belarus, and Ukrainian cities are preparing for all-around defense. I've already talked about Kyiv and the Kyiv region, then about Volyn, and now it turns out that Odesa is also preparing for this very all-around defense. And let's see what they're telling us about Odesa here.
Odesa is being prepared for all-around defense. Well.
So, serious work is already underway. They've brought in excavators. Well, you can get a nice shot for the camera in any case, especially since the budget is being put to use, but still.
It turns out it's really for all-around defense. And this is happening not because some offensive is being prepared against the city, but so that such an offensive never happens.
This is actually an amazing concept, that the city is preparing for defense, not because some offensive is being prepared, but so that this offensive never happens. The question arises, why then wasn't Odesa prepared for defense in 2022, or even in 2023, or even in 2024? No, it has to be right in the middle.
In the middle of 2026, they're digging kilometers around Odesa.
Yeah, well, basically they're preparing trenches here, then they're getting the barbed wire ready too, they're preparing everything, and maybe they're even preparing Kyiv for evacuation. Here we have the magnificent Kuleba, this owner and master of shovel handles with which he was going to go fight, like Yatsenyuk with his bullet to the forehead line. This is Kuleba, only not a bullet but shovels. Very interesting, someone...
The nerves can't take it if the mind can't handle it. I completely understand that. It's hard for everyone. Well then, we need to take a break from life in Kyiv, so to speak.
Kuleba advises Kyiv residents to take a break from life in Kyiv. I understand that Kuleba has more money than he knows what to do with, and his wife opened 2 specialty stores with an erotic focus using honestly earned money. And by the way, it was also her who recommended in winter, I'm not joking, to surround yourself with heated rubber products. It turns out she has those in her store. And that's how she suggested to protect yourself from the cold. I'm not joking, she really said that. I can't find the video anymore, but I showed it so often in the winter that everyone got tired of it. Now, her husband says that if you're homeless, just buy a house. If you're homeless, just buy a house. What's the problem? If you don't want to live in Kyiv, if your nerves can't handle it, if you don't like the noise and chaos, if the bombings annoy you, just move to Monaco, move to Courchevel, move somewhere where life will be easy and simple. It's amazing how out of touch these people are with ordinary life, with our life, dear viewers. Well, it's like if I suggested to you, if you don't have bread, just buy yourself some marbled meat. Why not? Japanese marbled meat is extremely tasty. You'll be able to restore your acid-base balance. And as for bread, he says, let's just leave Kyiv.
Every person should take care of themselves. But once again, I urge everyone, above all, to be cautious and follow safety rules.
Let's follow the safety rules and everything will be fine.
Be prepared for destruction. Destruction, that is, people saw something in front of them. The destruction that happened that night, during the bombing that night, museums, or rather, residential buildings, museums, businesses. It's psychologically difficult and you have to be prepared for it.
On top of that, you have to be prepared for destruction. Peace? No, we haven't heard of it. Negotiate for peace? Why bother? But Zelensky keeps escalating things, and for example, instead of meeting with Lukashenko and talking, after all, Lukashenko and Putin have a normal relationship. One has a strong influence on the other. Lukashenko didn't just offer to meet with Zelensky anywhere at any time for no reason. He's ready to meet not only in Minsk, but also in Kyiv, for example. Instead of that, what does Zelensky do? He goes and meets with the greatest leader of all time, of the universe, the ruler of universes, Tikhanovskaya. How is this even supposed to make any sense? First of all, this is a person who seems to be in the opposition. And basically, she doesn't decide anything at all. I mean, she might be able to decide, for example, to cook a pot of borscht for her husband. She might be able to organize some small rally somewhere with a couple hundred people who still support her, along with that fundraiser for the fight against Lukashism. But instead of meeting with Lukashenko and talking, Zelensky says, how about we invite Tikhanovskaya? So at the same time, he annoys, for some reason, I don't know, Lukashenko himself. I mean, he's trying to irritate him. I don't know how much meeting with Tikhanovskaya affects Lukashenko's state of mind. But here's what he says, not Lukashenko, but Zelensky. It turned out so interesting, said Lukashenko, about the need for a meeting. And then Sviatlana Tikhanovskaya arrived. Glad to see you, Sviatlana. So what are you and Sviatlana supposed to work out? 2 pots of borscht? What can you possibly work out with a person who is just living off foreign grants? I'm talking about Tikhanovskaya, and can't do absolutely anything in Belarus. I understand. You can call her the queen of the universe, a noblewoman, whatever you want, but that doesn't change anything. She doesn't decide anything at all and can't do anything. You can sign a pile of some documents where, I don't know, Belarus now stretches all the way to the Pacific Ocean. Tikhanovskaya runs all of Belarus without Lukashenko's involvement. All of this can be done on paper as much as you want, even with the signatures of some US representatives. Everything will look just perfect, but it doesn't solve anything. How can you not understand that? So all of this is done just to, as they say, stir things up? And for some reason to put on a brave face in a disastrous situation. Plus, to spoil relations with everyone around, like Russia, Belarus, and possibly some other leaders of other countries. And at the same time, if Kuleba says, let's leave Kyiv, then another one of their officials, the Minister of Internal Affairs, Ihor Kliment, yes, Kliment, says, no, we should stay. Why? We are probably rephrasing the statement here. He says if the people of Kyiv didn't leave a few months ago, they probably won't leave now either. They likely don't have money or a way to leave. I understand that all these talkers who claim that Kardon and the 1991 borders are getting money for this, like Laptin or Bereza or some others, well, other people have jobs. Some people still go to the factory, someone got certified, some work as taxi drivers. And these people can't just leave Kyiv and not work because, oh my god, there's Maslow's pyramid, and physiological needs are the foundation. That's the pyramid. Physiological needs, are, well, first and foremost, to eat and drink. Only the deputies who are gradually eating up the country's budget know how you can eat and drink without working. And since the 90s, since the beginning of Ukraine's sovereign independence, they have burned through a lot of budget money, I assure you. And you could say they've also run up even more debt. And now Klimenko says, yes, well, why should we leave then? What is all this for? Because the Russian Federation has warned again that it will periodically bomb decision-making centers. After that, Peskov suddenly stated that it's not Bankova, that it's not the president. So the question arises, what is it then? And a list appeared, by the way, recently. Here it is, the list of targets. Here they are already showing us how many different non-strategic aircraft are taking off there. Some others have cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, strike drones, and everything else. And the targets are Hrushevsky Street, Bankova Street, Volodymyrska Street, Juliani, Sviatoshinsky District, and Darnitsky District, plus Obukiv, Fastiv, and Lviv. That's how things are. Whether it's true or not, we can only guess. But if these regions are shelled, the local residents will definitely be in trouble, that's for sure. And most of them, sorry, can't leave because they're not imposters, they're real people. Then Niky Yelizarov, our deputy commander of air defense forces, also says that the number of Shaheds that Russia launches simultaneously over Ukrainian territory is rapidly increasing. Russian drone attacks are becoming more massive and harder to repel, which is why some of them are hitting their targets. As if before they weren't hitting their targets. That's also kind of, well, interesting. Until now what? There were no attacks in Kyiv. Yeah, all those substations in Reshetilivka were burning. There isn't a single one left that hasn't been hit by shelling. Whether they're working or not is another question. But now they're saying they might start shelling water infrastructure, water and sewage systems, let's put it that way. And what can you do then? Well, just slowly crawl to the cemetery wrapped in a sheet like they used to recommend in pre-conscription youth training or whatever that thing was called. And on top of that, you have to hold it out in your outstretched arms in case of nuclear war so that the molten metal doesn't drip onto your government-issued boots. And suddenly again, after all these statements from the mayors, this guy, what's his name, the secretary of the NSDC went to Germany, urgently to Berlin for a meeting with Portagino, I believe, Merz, with Macron Monsieur, and with Starmer, that greatest peer of Great Britain. People who have the highest disapproval ratings in the entire history of the leadership of these countries. And it is said here that the mayors must urgently talk with their national security interlocutors, the so-called Euro-Troika. What are they deciding? Why are they talking to them? Just to get more money. But this money needs to be invested somewhere in order to have an effect. I can, for example, invest money in myself, but besides gaining weight, it won't give anything. Or maybe some kind of hedonism, some technical pleasures. But if you want to defend the country, then you need to invest money in the country, not in yourself, not inward but outward. And again, not in mansions or palaces like these, but in infrastructure projects, maybe repairing something, maybe building something. What significance the meeting of all these leaders at that place has is unknown. And it is said that diplomatic activity came at a critical moment. Over the weekend, Russia launched a massive strike on Kyiv, threatening new consecutive and systematic attacks. The Russian Foreign Ministry urged diplomats and foreigners to leave the city as soon as possible. And what's most interesting is that the EU ambassador to Ukraine rejected this demand. We are staying in Kyiv, we are staying with Ukraine. As for the other European countries, I don't know about them. He's a strange ambassador, supposedly representing the whole European Union, but all he does is wait for something to happen. But I think other people in those ministries and embassies from other countries won't stay there, and they will leave somewhere, yes, simply because they can't stay. They'll move, for example, to Lviv, set up a temporary headquarters there, or somewhere else where the shelling isn't as intense. But to sit in the center of Kyiv just to tell everyone later, look, I was sitting in the center of Kyiv, I'm so brave, so reckless and all that. Then European officials, together with Zelensky, also without any hesitation, discussed whether it was worth entering into direct negotiations with the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. They were looking for negotiators, Angela Merkel refused, someone else refused as well, and then the foreign minister Wadful decided to speak out. This very Wadful said that the European trio is making a new attempt to return to negotiations with a greater role for Europe in the coming weeks and months, or rather days. Europe has tried to get involved there before. That is, Russia, the US and Ukraine couldn't come to an agreement among themselves. Because first of all, there are 3 parties to the talks to begin with, and secondly, there are more negotiation points than all these negotiators can agree on in a certain amount of time. On top of that, they don't agree with most of each other's points. What can Europe do? How can Europe help? All these comrades, who are not really our comrades, will only bring even more chaos than there was before. These negotiations could be called chaotic, with 1 step forward and 2 steps back, and now things really don't look good at all. But Europe is actively trying to become a negotiating party. Maybe they're just spending more of the budget there, or maybe I have no idea. And by the way, speaking of budgets, it's also interesting, they want to help the Baltic countries withstand drone attacks from drones that don't even exist yet, just in case. And they're allocating 13.5 billion euros. Just imagine, that's a huge amount of money, and they're giving it to the small Baltic republics so they can hold out until, as we've been told, they become drone tigers. In short, there are more than enough tigers, dragons, and wolves here. Wolves who are wolves even to their own kind, it seems to me. And apparently, the smaller the country, the more aggressive and militaristic it is. We crank militarization up to the max and really start becoming, well, some kind of dragons already. Then, we still have a lot here, so let's gradually move on to our powerful leaders. Let me remember what date it is today and we'll get started with all of this. Here we have them, there's a TV for videos, everything is here. And let's take a look, here are these 2, a couple of oddballs, young Lenin on the right who has fully entered his young Elton John phase. He used to look completely different, I showed him to you before. If I can find his previous appearance now, I'll show you. If I can't find it, which is most likely the case, we'll have to make do with this character's current form factor. Okay, I couldn't find it, so let's take a look.
Kinta, inflation is raising prices everywhere, including gas, in the middle of the country and Crimea.
The man on the left is looking sternly, or maybe he fell asleep after the restaurant. He's in some kind of library, or maybe that's his own rather large house as well. But in general, the interview is actively going on.
Some kind of crisis or tension is starting.
Some kind of crisis is starting. The exceptionally rich Ukrainian language in the mouth of this person turns into Yaki's kriza.
Within the elite, within the Russian elite, within the Russian government, there are groups that are interested in seeing Putin go. It's the same here. We need to bomb Moscow with drone and missile strikes.
And immediately the group will split. Yes, what wonderful logic. Hit others, hit outsiders, so your own people are afraid, says the man. Then the same thing is said by this mama's little tough guy on the left. He's pretty bloodthirsty, by the way. He's like some kind of bun from hell, and he says all sorts of things.
So, is something like a pre-coup situation happening with Putin, in your opinion?
100 and hundreds. I showed this yesterday. Basically, he talked about how, yes, there are a lot of signs of an uprising. Naturally, he immediately got a call. They reported to him, said, listen, Kolobok, there's an important matter here. You need to tell everyone what you heard and saw, but do it briefly. Anyway, alright, here is the hero transformer Kostenko. Kostenko is talking with Svetlana Orlovskaya about the victory.
Our main task is to defend the country, create the conditions, and destroy the enemy, and victory will come one day.
Or to eat cabbage rolls with meat, so that the whole nation eats cabbage. You know, the deputies get the meat, but in the end, on average, everyone eats cabbage rolls. That's what Kostenko says too. We need victories, victory, victory, to the point that even that journalist started smiling. She was all smiles. And then there's also this little pie, that's Sukeles for us, who the further it goes, the more he looks like some kind of partisan, or rather a parody of one. You could say he's a couture partisan. Always well groomed, his hair is shiny, but his beard isn't shiny because he didn't trim it, apparently, so people would think he's sitting in some kind of bunker. The studio is set up like some kind of, well, it's a mess. There are already some things hanging around. It looks like, what's the name of that game where the Nazis came to power and ruled there in the 60s and 70s and they flew to Venus? War, I forgot anyway. Remind me, please, it's not Warhammer here, it's Wolfenstein. Wolfenstein, right? And this guy looks like he's sitting in that very castle Wolfenstein talking about all sorts of Wunderwaffe. This is the motherland, this is not law, this is footwear. Especially sitting in yet another studio, now that's protection. Recently, by the way, they started spreading public service ads, and the most surprising thing is that my channel subscribers on Telegram pointed this out to me. By the way, thanks to everyone who subscribed. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe. Just point your phone camera or tablet at this QR code for the Telegram channel, and you'll get right there. Or just click on the link right here. So those who are already there told me that sometimes YouTube attaches public service ads to my videos. For some reason, promoting these kinds of pioneers from the barbershop is also considered public service advertising. And here's one of the comments. This powerful leader was doing something like helping clean up the area in his underwear, helping to fix things. Well, anyway, that's exactly how I imagine it. Well, anyway, that's exactly how I imagine it. Well, anyway, that's exactly how I imagine it. I pictured this guy running out in his underwear in winter to fix something. Where, why, for what reason? It's absolutely impossible to understand. When I find the screenshot, I'll definitely share it in the Telegram channel and show it on YouTube. Not the guy in his underwear, but the comment about how he's such a commander that he can support his fighters even like that. That's an interesting kind of support.
Unfortunately, in Lesson 26, we won't be offended without forced mobilization.
Can you open your mouth wider? I can't understand a thing. I can't understand anything. It feels like he's in some kind of clinical depression. Maybe, I don't know, maybe his beard is bothering him and something's prickling. Or he's always wearing a new uniform. Every time he puts on a new uniform in the studio, that's not much fun either. He's always unhappy about something and opens his mouth less and less.
Unfortunately, it's impossible to completely shut off the world. Everyone who says it's possible is either someone who doesn't understand the process or a populace fighting for electoral gain.
The people are bad, the elections are bad, everything is bad, only Ukhilis is good.
But the main motivation for the vast majority of people today should be money.
That's what they became. You're here, right? These fighters with dumplings are just hilarious. Here it's about money. Over there he's spending billions and telling stories. He says that money should be the main factor. What's going on? Why? What money? What are you even talking about? Well, there are plenty of other characters here too, actually, though one of them lasts a whole minute and a half. Let's better watch the dancing fighter, without music, thankfully. But that's how we support our fighters too. Nana, I sang for you, Nana, Nana, basically. That's the kind of fighters we have. And then she says, I was on the front line, I did this, I tore the enemy apart with my teeth, I destroyed dumplings. That's not it. Look, on the front line she waved a sapper shovel from Kuleba. and with his wife's accessories too, so that's how it is. Either a hurricane is approaching or they're deciding to protect themselves from it because there are some commercial, so to speak, reasons behind it. Because yes, by the way, I haven't shown you everything yet, don't think the video is over. One of the Ukrainian comments from an expert, by the way, goes like this. An offensive from Belarus. Why are they talking about this again? And the third option is corruption. There's a high probability that millions will be stolen again during the construction of defensive structures. As far as I know, 12 billion hryvnias have been allocated for engineering work on the defensive lines along the state border. That money could have been used to buy shells and drones, but now 12 billion will be buried in the ground. That's why the idea is being pushed that there will be an attack from Belarus tomorrow. Well, on this cheerful note, on the note of corruption that's everywhere, let me finish this video and ask you to subscribe to this channel. And of course, leave your comments about everything you've heard. Be sure to do it. Whether you agree or disagree, it's extremely important. Goodbye, everyone.
Ukraine cannot make peace with Russia until all territories are returned. Even if we are talking about returning all the territories, it will be a matter of decades. Because we insist not only on the territories that Ukraine lost during the full-scale invasion, we also insist that the territories occupied during the ATO, JFO, and the occupation and annexation of Crimea are de jure Ukrainian.